Kal halayim Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai Wahavar Chakodash. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders of GMS that rule well, who I learned this truth from, and salutations and blessings to you elect out there, starting with the 144,000 and the rest. So this is a quote from John Rockefeller. He who works all day has no time to make money. And this lesson is going into wage slavery or debt slavery. Pretty much we get the short end of the stick in this kingdom, especially the Israelites, right? But the majority of people are debt slaves from birth, and this system, you cannot get ahead and attain riches. I won't say as easily in the ancient world, right? Because it wasn't easy, but in this society they trick you into thinking that you're working towards something better when you're just in a hamster wheel. You're in a cyclical situation where things are just rotating and the same thing is occurring over and over again, and you get distracted by cool little entertainment and toys and trinkets, to keep you distracted here and there. You go on your vacations, you get a credit card, you get whatever the case is, right? A new car. But it's to keep you on this hamster wheel, and the bankers, man, you got to give it to them, the wise men of Teman, the prince of Tyrus, he is wiser than Daniel, thou art wiser than Daniel. Ezekiel, the book of Ezekiel. These devils, man, they trick people into thinking that this is a way of life and this is how it is to be, right? So let me get this. So I was looking up pretty much. I'm going to play a quick video, actually. Hold on, let me play this video, because this is the video that sparked this lesson. I was already thinking of the lesson to do. I was meditating on this lesson, but I seen this video and I said I got to do a video on this. Hold on.
Poor people and middle class people feel like everything is expensive because they pay for things with money they've exchanged their time for. So they feel like they're paying for everything with their life because they are. So let's say I've got some money. We're going to call this some money. I got some money and I want to buy this car and I've got some time. So what I do is I take some of my time and I trade my time to somebody for some money, and they give me the money. When I get the money, I don't have the time anymore because the time's gone and I can't get it back. It's gone forever, right? So then I see this car and I'm like, I got this money that I changed my time for, and I'm going to take this money that I've changed my time for, I'm going to trade that in for this car. So now I don't have the time and I don't have the money anymore, but now I have the car. And now the car is becoming worth less over time, right? So I've traded an invaluable asset for a limited asset and then traded the limited asset for a depreciating asset. And I wonder why I'm getting broker.
Right? And that makes sense, man. That's why that I have this quote up here. He who works all day has no time to make money. So there's nothing wrong with working. Let's get into this. So I went into ChatGPT, right? And I pretty much started asking questions. So I forget exactly this question because the question's not, when I screenshot it, it blocks it at the top here. Share a link, but it says biblical debt slavery. In the Bible, debt slavery. I pretty much asked GPT modern day debt slavery, how would it correlate to the ancient world or the biblical world or something like that. Anyway, debt slavery occurred when someone fell into poverty and sold themselves or their labor to repay a debt. Exodus 21:2, which that happened, right? If you fell into debt, or even if you there's certain laws, like if you fought a man and you hit him in the face, it says with a hand or with a stone, and he doesn't die, but he's in bed and he can't get out of bed without crutches, and he lost work and money, you got to repay that man. you got to repay that man. Doesn't mean you go into debt as in a slave for him if you have the money. But guess what? If you don't have the money, then you do. You got to work until you pay it off. But just working, like I was saying on that hamster wheel, is not a way of life. That was not a way of life. It says, but biblical law capped this servitude 6 years max and commanded release plus forgiveness of debts every 7 years. See? Deuteronomy 15:1 and 2, preventing perpetual bondage. Usury, which is a big, huge crime in this society, man, by this devil, brought to you by E. Right? Usury, you're a lot of people are just paying off interest. They're not paying off the principal, which is a bitch. That's the money that is really profiting these credit card companies, really the oligarchs, really the bankers. It says usury, charging oppressive interest. That's what it is. Oppressive interest was explicitly forbidden among Israelites, right? Modern day debt slavery. Today, many people experience economic debt slavery. They don't literally belong to creditors, but wages are often too low to cover basic living costs, forcing dependence on loans or credit. You get a nice letter in the mail. All right, you get an ad pop up or an email. Hey, we got this card for you. 19% interest rate, 19.99% interest rate, or 21% interest, 22% interest, right? Guaranteed approve. And you need that money. You need that 500, 1,000, whatever it is, 2,000, right? It says high interest debt, credit card, payday loans, compound debt, effectively usury. Student loans, mortgages, medical bills, or predatory lending can trap people for decades, often with no realistic way out. Unlike biblical servitude, there's no mandated release. Debts can even outlive the borrower or pass to their heirs. The weak dollar and inflation. Fiat currency like the US or Canadian dollar loses purchasing power over time. Inflation means your wages buy less each year, right? And that's because it's not things that are increasing in price. It's that dirty dollar that you get, okay, that is depreciating, right? It's devaluing, So it says, meanwhile, wages often don't rise with the inflation, effectively making workers poorer over time, even if their pay nominally stays the same. This creates a hamster wheel. And you know what? This is why a lot of people are homeless. They get tired. To be honest, they get tired. They had a bad weekend. They get hooked on a drug or whatever the case is. But they also see the cyclical nature, the constant fucking Monday to Friday grind, weekend party. They're like, God damn, this is 30 more years, 40 more years, paying off this creditor, this. People bug out, man. They see there's really no way out, And then there's other people that are living small, in a small town, and they're just living. They're living on the land. They're not even affected like that with depression or whatever the case is. All right, I'm talking mostly this grid life, this metropolitan, big city, urban living. Okay, where the gap between rich and poor is ever increasing, pretty much. So it says this creates a hamster wheel. People must keep working more to afford the same necessities, and those with debt struggle even harder as interest accrues. Modern usury, though the Bible condemns usury, our financial system normalizes interest rates far beyond what's fair. Example, credit cards charging 20-30% APR, while banks pay 1% on savings. This imbalance transfers wealth from the working poor to financial institutions, entrenching inequality. Biblical contrast, Jacob's wealth example. Jacob's story, Genesis 30, shows labor for equity. He negotiated ownership, speckled flocks, rather than perpetual wage work. It says over time he built assets, real wealth, instead of staying dependent on Laban's pay. Modern systems rarely offer workers ownership, keeping them reliant on wages and vulnerable to debt. Right? Conclusion: modern debt slavery arises from poor wages. People borrow just to survive, high interest usury, a debt balloon out of control, currency devaluation, inflation, wages buy less, debts don't shrink with the dollar. Debts do not shrink with the dollar. Right, and let's go into a bit on Jacob, the synopsis. Right, his first 14 years, we know Laban tricked him. All right, he wanted Rachel, so it says Jacob worked 7 years for Rachel, but was tricked by Laban. It says these first 14 years were purely to pay for his wives. He wasn't building personal wealth. After 14 years, once Jacob had fulfilled the 14 years of service, he wanted to return home. But Laban, seeing how the Most High had blessed him because of Jacob, begged him to stay. Now let's get that. Genesis 30 and 25. Genesis 30. 25. Soon after, in the NLT, soon after Rachel had given birth to Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, please release me so I can go home to my own country. Let me take my wives and children, for I have earned them by serving you, and let me be on my way. You certainly know how hard I have worked for you. Please listen to me. Laban replied, I have become wealthy, for the Lord has blessed me because of you. Tell me how much I owe you. Whatever it is, I'll pay. Jacob replied, you know how hard I've worked for you and how your flocks and herds have grown under my care. You had little indeed before I came, but your wealth, right? Your wealth has increased enormously. The Lord Yahweh has blessed you through everything I've done. But now what about me? When can I start providing for my own family? And this is the thing, man. Like, you went out and you chiseled out your own, your own place. Your own estate, your own dynasty, if you want, whatever you want to call it. Your ownership, right? You went out and did that, man. Many means, right? Some men were mercenaries. Many Jakes were traders. You established a trading route. Never mind being just a trader at a market. You established a trading route. You know how rich you were. You had a trading route. You imported something that was so valuable you couldn't get it on this side of the world. People were paying hand over fist, right? That's a big hustle, man. That's a business, not a hustle, right? So there's many ways that you provided for your own family, and you made your own way. Okay. You got a plot of land. Now you need the building materials. You need the laborers, to build you your estate. Then you set your crops. You have a vineyard, or you have whatever kind of vegetables and different herbs and all these different things. Cattle, that's money, right? It says Abraham was rich in gold and cattle, and land, right? It says, verse 31, what wages do you want? Laban asked again. Jacob replied, don't give me anything, just do this one thing, and I'll continue to tend and watch over your flocks. Let me inspect your flocks today and remove all the sheep and goats that are speckled or spotted, along with all the black sheep. Give these to me as my wages. You see that? A supplanter, man, Jake, right? Because he knew, hey, that's how you get ahead. You don't get ahead by getting your weekly fucking pay, man, or goddamn bi-weekly. Every 2 weeks you get paid. It's fucking bullshit, man. You get paid every fucking 2 weeks, man. What kind of bullshit is that? How are you gonna live like that? Bugged out. So he knew. He said, look, I need sheep. What do you do with sheep, bro? You can cut off the wool, make clothing, blankets, all kinds of scarves. You know, you got a woman that can spin wool. There's your business right there, man. You know, and that's a very lucrative business. Go with sheep milk. You know, your woman knows how to you know, obviously, you know, how to milk a sheep. Well, she can probably curd some cheese. You make some cheese, man. You know, you got sheep cheese. You know, so that's a business, man. That's a business, right? You got certain sheep that you slay. Now you have meat, right? So these are this is how you make your way. Okay, not by a weekly or bi-weekly pay with a tax, you know, with a tax cut. They remove your tax. Oh, this is your tax. Madness, man. So let's go back. It says Jacob negotiated a new deal. No, we read that part. Using selective breeding. Actually, let's read that. Yeah, let's keep reading because I want to actually read that. Verse 33. In the future, when you check on the animals you have given me as my wages, you'll see that I have been honest. If you find in my flock any goats without speckles or spots, or any sheep that are not black, you will know that I have stolen them from you. All right, Laban replied, it will be as you say. But that very day Laban went out and removed the male goats that were streaked and spotted, all the female goats that were speckled and spotted or had white patches, and all the black sheep. He placed them in the care of his own sons, who took them a 3 days' journey from where Jacob was. Meanwhile, Jacob stayed and cared for the rest of Laban's flock. Then Jacob took some fresh branches from poplar, almond, and plant trees and peeled off strips of bark, making white streaks on them. Then he placed these peeled branches in the watering troughs where the flocks came to drink, for that was where they mated. And when they mated in front of the white streaked branches, they gave birth to young that were streaked, speckled, and spotted. Jacob separated those lambs from Laban's flock, and at mating time he turned the flock to face Laban's animals that were streaked or black. This is how he built his own flock instead of increasing Laban's. Whenever the stronger females were ready to mate, Jacob would place the peeled branches in the watering troughs in front of them. Then they would mate in front of the branches. But he didn't do this with the weaker ones. So the weaker lambs belonged to Laban, and the stronger ones were Jacob's. As a result, Jacob became very wealthy, with large flocks of sheep and goats, female and male servants, and many camels and donkeys. Okay, he increased exceedingly. Let me look up this word increased in the Hebrew. Paras. To break through or down or over. To burst. Ooh, to breach. This, you know, as they say in the world, to break through, man. I need a breakthrough. I need to break through. Jacob broke through, man. You don't break through with a fucking bi-weekly pay, bro. All right, and a weekend job. Okay. This is fucking madness. This is a hellhole. This is a garbage dump that we're living in. The scriptures actually say that. Let me actually get that. I found that scripture today. Garbage dump. The NLT. Hold on, Salakia. Alright, Psalms 113:7. He lifts the poor from the dust and the needy from the garbage dump. This is a fucking garbage dump, man. Alright, so anyway. Jacob's wealth came not from his initial bride price labor, but from the later profit sharing agreement where the Most High gave him increase. Why it matters. Jacob started with nothing but labor, but ended up a wealthy man through smart negotiation, diligent work, and divine favor. It also shows the biblical model. Working for ownership or equity can build lasting wealth, very different from working for mere wages forever. This contrasts with modern systems where many work for decades without ever gaining assets. Madness, bro. So then I typed in about how does fractional reserve tie in with this, right? So he's excellent. You're excellent. You're connecting the final big piece of the puzzle, fractional reserve banking, which many argue is a core driver of modern debt slavery. What is fractional reserve banking? It's the system where banks only keep a fraction of deposits on hand, example 1 to 10%, lending out the rest. Example, you deposit $1,000, the bank keeps $100, 10%. It lends out 900. The borrower spends it sometimes, or slack is someone else deposits that 900. Bank keeps 90, lends out 810, and so on. This creates money out of nothing, with each cycle multiplying the money supply far beyond actual cash reserves. Why do critics call it fraudulent or enslaving? Creates debt-based money. Almost every dollar in circulation today exists because someone borrowed it. And that's why I remember Apostle Dahar years ago, right? He made a statement. He said, he took out the American bill, American dollar, and he's like, look at this. This is not money. This is a piece of piece of shit. He said this is an IOU, right? It's debt. It's an IOU. So we're just all trading. We're not even buying. We're trading debt. You're not even really buying. You're not. There's no purchasing. The purchasing power is down anyway, but we're not even really buying. If you think about it, it's just a transfer of debt. You keep transferring debt, right? Almost every dollar. I read that. It's like it says, meaning if all debts were repaid, the money supply would collapse. Perpetual debt, because interest must be paid on these debts, but the system doesn't create money to pay the interest. It forces constant new borrowing just to keep the economy running, trapping people, businesses, and governments in never-ending debt cycles. Inflation by design. Each new loan increases the money supply, inflating prices, devaluing existing dollars, stealthily taxing savers and wage earners by eroding their purchasing power. Concentration of wealth. Those who control lending, banks, collect interest on money they created from thin air, amassing wealth while the majority struggles to repay. Okay, is it biblical? Ancient Israel did not have fractional reserve banking. Money was commodity-based, silver, gold, or goods, right? And yeah, like I said, there was barter system as well. That's why I mentioned about. Let me actually see if I can find that. I'm gonna get the one with Abraham. Yeah, Proverbs 27. Oh, 26. It says, your sheep in NLT, your sheep will provide wool for clothing, and your goats will provide the price of a field. Ooh, that's land, man. That's land, bro. That's right. Verse 27. And you will have enough goat's milk for yourself, your family, and your servant girls. All right. So the price of a field. So that's money, man. That's wealth. That's profit. So it says the Bible condemns dishonest scales and measures and prohibits charging exploitative interest. Now, I said I was going to get that. Let me see. Genesis, what is that, 13? Yeah, 13 and 2. Abraham was very rich in livestock, silver, and gold. Okay, very rich. Very rich. Damn. Creating money by lending what doesn't exist can be seen as a dishonest measure. Of course. That's fucking madness. Because it represents a claim on wealth without corresponding production or value. How does it tie into debt slavery? Debt-based money, perpetual repayment. Everyone must keep earning or borrowing to service debt or else default. Weakening wages, inflation from money creation erodes real wages. People borrow more, deeper debt, modern debt slavery. Systemic risk, since banks don't have enough reserves to cover all deposits, a bank run can collapse the system, revealing it as inherently unstable. Conclusion, fractional reserve banking, by creating money through debt, inherently requires continuous borrowing, perpetual debt slavery. As the scriptures say, the borrower is servant to the lender, right? There was a movie, one of my favorite movies, was it called Catch Me If You Can, with Leonardo DiCaprio, right? And his father, which I love him. I forget his name though. I love that actor though. But he was wanted by the IRS in that movie. But in the movie, he's like, his son turned 16, I think, and he opened up, the father opened a checking account for him. You know, he's like, here's your first checkbook. You know, I opened up a checking account, and he's like, why? He's like, why'd you open a bank account? And then he's like, look, these people have all the money. He's like, well, one day you might need a car, one day whatever you do. And that's bugged out, man, because, you know, like I said, you're not supposed to have this central bank where they have these oppressive measures, you know, and a system of debt slavery where you have to go to them, you know, and they present it as like, you know, oh, you don't have to go to us, like you can work and you can do this and that. No, you have to go to them if you want to get to a certain level, and even just to do certain little things, man. Like I said, loan, you know, get a loan on a car or whatever the case is, right? You need a little extra money, you want a business loan, right? So they have all the money, okay, but it's a very oppressive system, okay? It says causes systemic inflation, devalues workers as wages over time, transfers wealth upward through interest, enriching lenders at the expense of borrowers. This stands in sharp contrast to biblical financial principles of honest money, fair dealing, and limits on debt and interest, highlighting why many see it as unethical and a key pillar of modern economic bondage. Okay, so I just wanted to bring that out. That was pretty much it.
Poor people.
You know, this place is bugged out. This place, we're almost out of here anyway. This place is finished. Shalom.